I bought my dream property for the peace, a small log cabin on 10 acres, tucked away near a quiet lake that wrapped around the edge of my land like a secret. I didn't move here for the views, though they were stunning. I moved here for silence, and for the first 2 years, that's exactly what I got, until Karen moved in across the water. At first, I didn't even know her name. I only knew her by the noise. It started with loud music, weekends mostly, Friday nights echoing off the lake like someone dropped a stereo in the middle of the water. I'd sit on my porch with a cup of coffee, staring across the water into the trees, trying to convince myself it would stop, but it didn't. It got worse. A floating dock appeared next, small at first, just a platform tied to a couple barrels and anchored in the shallows, then a few chairs, then speakers, then lights. I never saw anyone build it. It just showed up, as if Karen waved a wine glass and summoned it from the lake. One morning, I finally saw her, tall, blonde, sunglasses, mimosa in hand, yelling at some teenagers about DJ rotations and backup generators. I watched her from across the lake as she laughed loudly at her own joke, tossing her head back like she was the queen of summer. That dock was no longer just a platform. It was a full-on floating bar. I decided to take a walk around. There's a narrow trail that loops around the lake. Public access, nothing fancy. I figured I'd introduce myself, talk neighbor to neighbor. No drama. I should have known better. Karen spotted me as I approached and immediately shifted into defensive mode, hands on hips, sunglasses sliding down her nose like she was inspecting a child who wandered into the wrong room. "Can I help you?" she barked before I could say a word. "Just wanted to introduce myself," I said calmly. "I live across the lake. The noise gets kind of loud on weekends." She didn't even blink. "It's a free lake," she snapped. "If you wanted silence, you shouldn't have moved near water." Then she turned away mid-sentence and started shouting something about ice buckets. That was it. That was the moment I knew. This woman wasn't just inconsiderate. She was entitled. And entitled people always dig their own holes. You just have to let them. That night, the party didn't stop at midnight. It went on until 3 in the morning. Then the fireworks started. Actual fireworks. Bursts of red and gold lighting up the trees and reflecting on the lake's glassy surface. I sat in my cabin, lights off, watching everything. By the following weekend, boats started showing up. Not just 1 or 2, 5 or 6. Loud engines, people drinking, laughing, jumping off the dock like it was a resort. Karen had turned my peaceful lake into her private club. She even put up a tacky sign that said, "Lake life, no rules, just fun." The irony almost made me laugh. Almost. I pulled out the folder from my desk drawer, the one I hadn't touched since I bought the property. Inside was the original purchase agreement, land survey maps, and, most importantly, the water rights documents. You see, when I bought this land, the lake came with it. Not all of it, of course, but a portion large enough that Karen's floating barge of noise was actually parked on my side of the water line. I traced the property line with my finger. Her dock wasn't just annoying. It was trespassing. Karen thought she was partying on public water. She had no idea that every cannonball, every bass drop, every spilled drink was happening on my land, and I was done watching. Karen thought the lake was hers. She danced on that floating dock like she owned the waves, hosted parties like it was the 4th of July every weekend, and shouted across the water like we all lived in her kingdom. But what she didn't know was that her empire floated right on my property, and I had the paperwork to prove it. The next morning, I didn't go over there yelling. I didn't post signs or make threats. That's what she would have done. No, I took notes. I walked the lake edge early, just after sunrise. Quiet time. No one around. I took photos of her dock, the anchors, the boats moored on my water. I used my drone to get overhead shots. I even marked GPS coordinates. Then I opened my county's GIS, Geographic Information System, and cross-checked everything with the plat map in my folder. There it was, clear as day. Karen's entire floating setup, her chairs, speakers, tiki torches, even that stupid no rules sign, was all sitting on my legal lot. By the end of the week, Karen's party crowd had doubled. More boats, louder music, and, somehow, a jet ski. A damn jet ski. I didn't even know who it belonged to. At one point, I saw a guy zip by with a beer in one hand and a Bluetooth speaker in the other. I watched as he nearly collided with two kayakers near the far end of the lake. That's when I called the sheriff. Not to file a noise complaint, those go nowhere. No, I asked for a property line enforcement deputy, the kind they send when people build fences in the wrong places or dump trash on someone else's land. The officer came out 2 days later. He parked at my place, and I showed him everything. Maps, photos, timestamps, GPS logs. He took one look and said, "Well, this is going to be interesting." The next afternoon, I sat on my porch with a glass of sweet tea and waited. From where I sat, I had a perfect view across the water as the sheriff's truck pulled up on Karen's gravel driveway. She came out in a neon tank top and yoga pants, already annoyed. I couldn't hear the whole conversation, but I saw the gestures, the folded arms, the pointing, the sunglasses coming off. She stormed to the edge of her yard, hands flying as she argued. Then the deputy pointed out toward the dock, then back at my cabin. That was the moment. That one small flick of his finger, pointing at me, and I knew she finally understood. This wasn't about a cranky neighbor. This was about trespassing. The next day, Karen fired back. She put up a laminated sign on the dock. Private party, public lake, no trespassing. It was almost funny. She still didn't get it. She thought if she called it public, it magically became hers. Like land laws were based on vibes. Then she doubled down. Another speaker showed up, more lights. She started charging people $20 to dock and party with Karen. That's when it turned into a business, and that's when she crossed the next legal line. I didn't confront her. Instead, I logged every boat that pulled up, took license plates, took time-stamped photos of the crowd, the alcohol, the payment app, QR code she taped to a cooler. I sent it all to the county code enforcement office. And this time it wasn't just about trespassing. It was about running a business without a license, serving alcohol without a permit, safety violations, unauthorized construction on protected waters. Karen had built her empire on water she didn't own, and the moment it became profitable, it became illegal. I knew it wouldn't last much longer. I'd given the system everything it needed. The code violations were stacking up. The county was about to get involved, and Karen was dancing on a dock that was one letter away from being condemned. But I wasn't done yet, because revenge doesn't just end with fines and paperwork. It ends when they realized they were never in control. For a few days, Karen must have thought she won. The music was louder than ever. The crowd was rowdier. She even added floating lights to the dock, turning the lake into some kind of disco swamp. But what she didn't know was that while she was partying, the county office was stacking violations like poker chips, and I was the one dealing the cards. It was a Thursday afternoon. Karen was out front arranging folding chairs when a white pickup truck pulled into her driveway, county seal on the side, clipboard in hand. I didn't even need to watch. I already knew what was happening. She got hit with 4 citations on the spot. Unauthorized dock construction on private property, operating a business on residential zoning, environmental disturbance of a protected lake, alcohol distribution without a license. Each carried a $1,000 fine, and that was just the beginning. She had 72 hours to remove the dock and cease all lake activity, or the county would do it for her, at her expense. That night, Karen lost it. She stood at the lake's edge, screaming into the dark, pacing, calling someone on speakerphone. Her voice echoed across the water like a ghost that didn't know it was dead. And then came the cherry on top. The very next morning, a manila envelope arrived on her porch. It was from my attorney. See, what Karen never bothered to understand was this. Her house, the one she thought gave her lakefront rights, it was actually built on a shared access easement from back in the 1970s. The land between her backyard and the lake, about 30 feet wide, didn't belong to her. It belonged to the original developer, who sold it to my grandfather. And when my grandfather passed, it became mine. Legally, Karen's entire lakefront lifestyle had been standing on my land for years. Her dock, her chairs, her stepping path, even her fire pit, all trespassing. And the moment she violated zoning laws, that easement became voidable. I revoked it. Within a week, the dock was dismantled by county workers. Her backyard was stripped of lake access. Boats stopped coming. she had to refund payments or face fraud charges, and the HOA, which had stayed quiet until now, slapped her with $500 a day non-compliance fines for public nuisance and unauthorized use of shared amenities. Her house went from lakefront party central to a sad cabin with no view and a $7,000 fine pile on the kitchen counter. And me, I just sat on my porch with my tea, watching the water. One evening, I saw her standing on her barren lawn. She looked tired, like someone who finally realized she wasn't the main character anymore. I waved, not smug, not angry, just final. She didn't wave back, and that was enough. I never raised my voice, never broke a single law, never even stepped onto her property. But Karen, she threw herself into the fire. All I did was hand her the match.